Hello and welcome to the Biography Shorts. I am your narrator, Frank Avella. Here we will be covering the short biography of one of the greatest military leaders of all time, Napoleon Bonaparte. Here we will be covering several different topics, so let's begin with the first section, which is our introduction, so let's dive right in. Napoleon Bonaparte rose through the ranks to become the Emperor of France. In fact, it was Napoleon that crowned himself as the first ever Emperor of France. He conquered much of Europe during the 19th century. Napoleon was a great tactical military leader. His military tactics were a source of inspiration for many other generals. He is responsible for establishing the Napoleonic Code, which outlined civil rights for individuals of France. The Napoleonic Code is still in use today in Belgium, Monaco, and Luxembourg. Napoleon rose to power during the French Revolution. He is considered a great military general, and he led a large number of successful military campaigns for the French. On to the next section, which is his early life. Napoleon Bonaparte was born on August 15, 1769, in Corsica. Although Napoleon will go on to become perhaps the most famous Frenchman, his parents were actually of Italian nobility. Corsica at the time was under French control, and Napoleon's father supported Italian nationalists at the time. His father was a well-respected lawyer. Napoleon's father became a representative of Corsica. At age 9, Napoleon moved to the French mainland and went to school with French children who bullied young Napoleon for his Corsican accent. Because of this, Napoleon became reserved and intended to become a writer. Napoleon would often write about his feelings before turning his direction to the military life. The next section up has to do with his military career and his military rise. The turmoil of the French Revolution created many opportunities for a young and ambitious Napoleon. During the revolution, about 2,500 people were executed by means of the guillotine. During this time, Napoleon aligned himself with the Directory. Napoleon got in the good graces with the Directory, and they named him Commander of the Army of the Interior. When Napoleon took over his command post in Italy, he quickly turned the army around. Napoleon's military career continued with victories against Austria. He also squashed internal threats by royalists. Napoleon had a disastrous campaign in Egypt, but he promoted his Egypt losses as a major victory for France. The people saw him as a hero. The next topic up is Napoleon as the ruler of France. Napoleon took part in the Coup of 18, which was actually a bloody overthrow and a coup d'etat of the Directory. The Directory was replaced with a 3-member consulate. Following this act, the Napoleonic Wars took place. During this time, Napoleon was at war with the British, Austria, and the Russians. Napoleon enacted the very popular Napoleonic Code and proclaimed himself Emperor of France. The Napoleonic Code banned birth privileges. In 1812, he invaded Russia, and it was a big failure. His enemies were closing in on him. Napoleon was then forced to abdicate his power. On April 6, 1814, he went into exile on the island of Elba, which is right outside of Italy. However, Napoleon would not remain in exile for long. And let's look at his personal life. Napoleon married his wife Josephine. Josephine was the widow of the French general Alexander, who was beheaded during the reign of terror of the French Revolution. She already had 2 children at the time of marriage. Unfortunately, she couldn't bear Napoleon a son. He then had the marriage annulled. It was said that he loved her more than she had loved him. He even kept a picture of her in his pocket after they were divorced, and he'd often kiss that picture. Napoleon then married Marie-Louise. She was 18-year-old daughter of the Emperor of Austria. Their marriage was a proxy wedding. Napoleon wanted to marry into royal German blood. Together, they had 1 son, Napoleon II. He was known from the time of birth as the King of Rome. The next section centers on his famous Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon couldn't stay in exile long. He wound up returning to and had to fight the British. The British army wasn't alone. They also joined Ireland, the Netherlands, the German Legion, and Brunswick to form the 7th Coalition. The Duke of Wellington was chosen to lead the 7th Coalition. The Duke was a brilliant defensive military strategist and went on to serve as Prime Minister. Napoleon's loss at the Battle of Waterloo signaled the end of the Napoleonic reign. Napoleon was exiled again, this time to the island of St. Helena. This was his second exile. If you remember, the first exile was to the island of Elba. Napoleon Bonaparte dies on May 5, 1821, of what historians think was stomach cancer. Other theories involve arsenic. Napoleon was very depressed during the remainder of his life in exile. Let's move on to the next section, which is the fun facts. First off, Napoleon actually wasn't that short. You have to realize that at the time Napoleon was alive, the average height was about 5'6". Napoleon himself was documented at 5'7". Interestingly, Napoleon wrote a romantic novella. The story revolves around the doomed romance of a soldier and his lover. Also, Napoleon's army discovered the Rosetta Stone. During his Egypt campaign, one of Napoleon's soldiers found a black basalt rock that was inscribed with ancient writings near the town of Rosetta. And let's finish with a quote from Napoleon. "Death is nothing, but to live defeated and without glory is to die every day." So that was basically everything you ever needed to know about Napoleon Bonaparte. Be sure to check out the next biography short on George Washington. Also, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Click the bell on the subscribe icon to get notifications. Please like and share this video. And most importantly, check the description links to resources as well.